Hey guys, welcome to my studio, and today I want to show you how I create my paintings. So before I actually get started, I just wanted to show you what I paint on. I paint on birch panel, Baltic birch, and I either paint on it where it's cut to size like this, and I glue a smaller piece in the center. Or sometimes I paint on cradle boards, especially if I'm going to paint large. I'll paint this bottom surface will be a cradle board, and then I'll glue another piece on top of it like this. So I like to paint on board because it's hard. It's a hard surface. It doesn't bounce, and I can get a nice smooth surface, which I really like. So yeah, so that is what I paint on. And sometimes I gesso them, the whole thing. And sometimes I only gesso the center, and then I might leave the surrounding border area plain wood, so then I can use wood burning around the outside. So I do a variety of things on the borders, mixed media, glue things, all kinds of stuff like that. So to start with, we are going to put on the first coat. And what I do is I use Payne's Gray as my first coat after the gesso. It's a really super dark blue, and I really like how the colors lay over top of it. So that's the first thing I do, is I paint the whole thing with Payne's Gray. And I've got 3 little pieces here, so I'm going to do like a triptych. That's what you call a work when it has 3 parts. It's called a triptych. And if it has 2 pieces, it's called a diptych. That sounds like you're saying something rude, but it's not. Yeah. So I put a layer of that on there. We'll do the other ones. And I try to get it pretty smooth. I don't want brush strokes. If I can get it, I don't want little things sticking up on there. So as it's drying, I just kind of go over it a little bit to kind of make sure it's all nice and smooth. All right, that's 2. Just get rid of a few little, making sure it's all nice and smooth. And we'll just move this one over here. And the last one. And usually I will put a couple of coats of this Payne's Gray on it. There's already at least 2 coats of gesso with sanding in between, maybe 3. I'm not sure what my studio assistant did, but I think that's what she did. That gives a nice smooth surface to start with. It really makes a difference. Having a nice smooth surface to start from. All right, there we go. Now we got 1 coat. Now I use my handy dandy hair blower sorry, this is going to be loud. And I'll just dry it. Yep, sorry, that was noisy, but I get really impatient. Kind of the reason I like to paint with acrylics and why I like painting with the fluid acrylics is because of the way how fast they dry. It's not the greatest if you're going to do plein air painting. Fluid acrylics dry super fast, and well, acrylics generally dry fast, and I found that for plein air painting, it's a little bit frustrating, especially on a hot day. The paints dry so fast. In fact, one painting I was working on, the paint was drying on my brush before I could even get it onto the surface. And I looked at my sister and I said, okay, I'm done. And I took pictures of what I wanted to paint, and I took my picture home and I finished it in my studio. And that happens sometimes. So I don't know. I like painting outside. But I might have to find another way to go about doing that, because it did not work very well with. That might be the time I pick up my oil paints again, I guess. Might have to do that. All right, we're just about done here. Get our last one. So the thing I like about my hair blower though is, and one thing I do like about my acrylic paints is that they dry quickly, and I can layer and layer and layer, and I can layer pretty quickly without having to wait too long in between my layers, which would be very annoying. So I tend to like to work quickly. All right, so there we've got those done first with the coat of Payne's Gray. Sorry, another hair blower here. Just be a minute. So now what I'm going to do is use a ruler and a white opaque marker pen, and I'm going to make a line where I'm going to put my horizon line. All right, so I'm going to put my horizon line at 1 inch, because the whole picture is, yeah, that mark doesn't stay there very long. The whole picture is inches, and if you're at all aware of the idea of the law of thirds, we divide our picture plane into thirds, and we either make the sky 1/3 and the land 2/3, or the other way around. Because when you divide your picture in half completely, it's pretty static. So your picture plane is always more interesting when you have it in thirds. So that is what I'm going to do for this. We're going to have 1/3 sky and 2/3 land. And I use this marker because it does cover over super easy. Then what I do is I take some of this painter's tape and I just put that down over top of my, where I have my line, and I can get a nice straight horizon line. And last one. All right, just push that down a little bit. Okay, so now we are going to create our sky. Pull out some blues here and some titanium white. So I'll put a little bit of white. We have some primary cyan, just a little bit of that. And here I have some teal. This is one of my favorite colors. Not much left in there. Okay. All right. And we'll mix that up. So we're creating a nice blue. It's a little bit dark. Let's add a little bit of more white to it. And we're going to add a little bit of more of this. Maybe a little bit more white. Sometimes it takes a bit to get the right color. There we go. Okay, now I don't use a brush to put this on. I actually use a wet sponge. And I guess what I like is, I like how the paint sort of sits on the surface and there's a little bit of a texture to it. And I don't worry if I get some onto the border, because I can always paint over that. That's not a problem. But I get this onto here. Sometimes it covers better than others. I'll go back, cover it again. Okay, now we're going to dry that. Okay, so we got that. Now, the next trick I use is this. This is called zinc white, which is different than titanium white, because titanium white is quite opaque and zinc white is very transparent. And you can kind of see this here at the top where you got the black lines. You can see that they painted over this. It's way more transparent. All right, so I use this one when I want to create a kind of a haze. And I have a specific brush that I like to use. Not that one, this one. It's just kind of a dabber. And what I do is I just get some of this white paint into there and I just dab along the horizon line to lighten that up, because if you look at the horizon, you'll see that where the horizon meets the land, it's a little bit lighter. And so I use this white on the horizon line to make that a little bit lighter. Now, I have something else that I use. I use this. It's called a satin glazing fluid. And what I do is I take this and I mix in, let's say some of this Payne's Gray. I mix that into there and I make a glaze with it. Okay. Now I can use that glaze up at the top and I can make it a little bit darker at the top of the sky and working into a lighter color at the bottom. Awesome. Wipe that off. And I do the same thing on any of my others. Now I would also use this zinc white to create my clouds. It's just awesome for that. You really have to build it up in layers, but you can build up this, transparency layers, and it just is very convincing as clouds. And the edges, how the clouds kind of fade off into nothingness at the edges. Well, you can do that with this zinc white. Works really well for that. Oops, wrong one. Getting distracted here. All right, just about done. So you can actually see it actually works pretty fast for setting up my picture. Now, of course, I would go back in here after and add more detail, like if I want to add clouds or a sunset or a sunrise. In this case, I don't think I'm going to do that, but there. Okay, so now that's the sky. So now I pull off my tape. Some of my lines are cleaner than others. And now I'm going to start working on the land part. And what I usually do is add, put a dark color under, like, for example, green. I might put a dark green down if it's going to be like a green field or something, or I might do like a brown if it's going to be, like a wheat field at harvest time, so it's more golden. So I might use that, but I think I'm going to do some green fields, and I'm going to use a little brush, because besides a sponge, I might also use this kind of a brush. So it's another kind of a dabber kind of thing. These are kind of some of my favorite brushes. So then I just put my green down. Now, I know you can't really see it that much over top of the dark blue, but it's there. Okay, there's one. There's two. This one I got the line, I must have put the tape on a little more firmly. Got a nice clean edge there. Okay. All right. Give that a bit of a dry. All right. Now I'm going to use another green. This is chromium oxide green. And we're going to use it again. We just use it up at the top. Sometimes I even might leave a little of the dark color up at the top because it kind of looks like trees a little bit on the horizon. Okay, now rather than, so here's a trick. Now I clean out my brush, wipe it on a rag, and then I can go into that edge and just really blend it into the dark without covering it all in, but just blend that all in into the darker area. There, and that. And we do the same. Now I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to have that darker color like that. So that one has, the dark comes down to there, and we're going to have this one have the most dark on it. Kind of, I call it scumbling. Okay, right, now we are going to use, that's another one of my favorite colors. This one is called green gold. And I use just a little bit of that up at the top, just to blend that in. And the last one. And yep, sometimes I use my hand too. Yeah, burrs. Okay, and very last but not least, I use, another one of my favorite colors is called Naples Yellow. And I don't need very much of that. I use a little bit of that. I mix it into my green gold to just lighten that color up a little bit. Get some of that paint off my brush because I don't want it to be too saturated. And then I can just use a very light touch. Remember, cleaning your brush and just kind of bring that down, because we don't want a line, we just want a nice and I might even go back and use an even lighter color in there. That just adds the lightness to the horizon line. And last one. There we go. All right, so now you can see that I've created 3 little landscapes. Now I can go back in and add more detail, like I'm going to add a little house or trees, or haven't quite decided what the story is going to be. But that's kind of how I lay out my landscapes. And yeah, so there you see my process, and I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.